Over the Garden Wall is a series that disguises itself as a cozy piece of fall nostalgia. Pumpkins, old-timey music, gay frogs in Versace suits, but underneath all that aesthetic charm is a surprisingly raw exploration of what it means to be insecure, overwhelmed, terrified, and trying desperately to hold yourself together. And no character embodies that emotional turbulence more than Wirt, a boy who is half poet, half disaster, and entirely made out of anxiety. This video isn't about the unknown. It's not about the Beast. It's not even about Greg, God's funniest and most chaotic child. This video is about Wirt, a boy who fears everything, and somehow fears himself most of all. A boy who learns, in the strangest possible world, what it really means to grow up, and why becoming vulnerable might actually be scarier than any monster in the woods.
I mean, I'm just saying, you're weird. Like, not normal. I mean, oh my gosh, stop talking to it, Wirt. What are you?
Let's start with the obvious. Wirt is not a typical protagonist. He's not a hero, he's not an adventurer, he's not even particularly capable. He kinda sucks, if we're being honest. He is essentially a tangle of hesitations bundled into human form. He's such a loser, and I just want to bully him all the time. But Wirt's defining trait, the axis on which his entire arc turns, is this. Wirt is terrified of being perceived. He performs versions of himself constantly. With Sara, he's aloof because he's afraid caring too much will expose him. With Greg, he plays the older brother role, even though Greg is the one emotionally keeping him together. With strangers, he shifts between trying to be polite, trying to seem intelligent, and trying not to talk at all. He listens to Claire on wired headphones while reading feminist literature on the Barnes & Noble escalator on his way to get matcha. What I'm saying is that he's performative. Wirt's personality is basically one long evasive maneuver. And this fear of being truly seen isn't played for laughs. It's the heart of his struggle. Because being known means being vulnerable. It means risking rejection. It means risking humiliation. And for Wirt, humiliation might as well be death. Everything about him is shaped by this need to avoid emotional exposure. He doesn't just hesitate, he anticipates failure before even attempting anything. Wirt doesn't see himself as someone who might succeed, he sees himself as someone who inevitably won't. That's why the unknown isn't just a place. It's the perfect metaphor for Wirt's internal world.
Into the unknown.
The unknown is one of the most fascinating locations in animated storytelling because it feels both whimsical and profoundly unsettling. It's the kind of place where a frog can lead an orchestra, a schoolteacher cries over her ex-husband's lack of interest, and a field of pumpkins recreate a scene from Midsummer. The unknown doesn't make sense, and that's the point. It behaves exactly like anxiety, a space where logic bends, stakes are unclear, and every turn is unpredictable. But here's the real reveal. Wirt ends up in the unknown not because he's adventurous, but because he panics. In the final episode, we see the real events. Wirt and Greg run away because Wirt is spiraling over his crush on Sara. His emotional meltdown becomes literalized as physical danger, because for Wirt, the fear of embarrassment is as real and threatening as drowning. The unknown then becomes the symbolic landscape of his fear. Every strange encounter, every unsettling atmosphere, every moment of confusion reflects Wirt's internal experience. He doesn't trust his own judgment. He assumes strangers are judging him. He sees danger where others see adventure, and he constantly second-guesses his instincts. The unknown presents challenges that require confidence, decisiveness, and trust, all things Wirt doesn't believe he has. It's not a place he has to escape physically, it's a place he has to escape psychologically. The unknown is Wirt's mind externalized, and that's why it traps him so effectively.
I have this crush on this girl.
Mm-hmm.
That's all.
That's all?
Before Wirt ever meets the Beast, before he ever touches the lantern, before he even steps into the unknown, he's already haunted by something just as powerful. Sara. And not because she's frightening, she's not. She's kind, she's warm, she's open, she's the exact kind of person who makes friendship look effortless. Sara scares Wirt precisely because she doesn't scare him. She makes him want things. Connection, affection, acceptance. Things far more dangerous than a creepy forest ever could be. Wirt isn't terrified of Sara rejecting him. He's terrified of Sara seeing him. Because that would require vulnerability. And vulnerability for Wirt is his personal apocalypse.
Let's go listen to it.
Let's break this down, because Wirt's behavior around Sara tells us more about his character than anything in the unknown does. Wirt's crush isn't just a crush, it's a crisis of identity. Most teenage crushes are awkward. Wirt's crush is existential. To Wirt, Sara represents a version of himself he wishes he could be. Confident, interesting, spontaneous. Someone with social skills that don't require a warm-up period. But Wirt doesn't believe that version of himself actually exists. He thinks it's a fantasy, a delusion. So instead of trying to get closer to Sara, he tries to disappear. He doesn't talk to her directly. He overthinks every move. He spirals about her vaguely having a boyfriend. He catastrophizes the idea of anyone knowing he likes her. Wirt's crush isn't romantic. It's aspirational. He wants to be someone Sara could want. Not because she expects that, but because he doesn't think the real him is enough. This is where Wirt's insecurity becomes self-destructive. Wirt doesn't fear rejection. He fears being exposed. Most people fear rejection because it hurts. Wirt fears rejection because he thinks it will confirm everything he secretly believes about himself. His anxiety tells him, "You're awkward, you're embarrassing, she would never like you, everyone sees you as weird, stay quiet, don't try, don't risk it." Rejection isn't the problem. Validation of his worst fears is. So, Wirt constructs an elaborate wall of inaction. He creates emotional distance. He pretends he doesn't care. He avoids vulnerability at all costs. This is why the unknown is such a fitting metaphor. Wirt is already lost in his own thoughts long before he ever gets lost in the woods. The unknown isn't escape, it's amplification. When Wirt falls into the river and enters the unknown, that moment isn't random, it's symbolic. He's literally drowning in his own panic over Sara. This is the part people don't always catch. Wirt doesn't enter the unknown because of danger, he enters because of embarrassment. He spirals so intensely over a crush that it becomes a physical crisis. And everything he encounters in the unknown reflects this emotional state. He's constantly mistaken for someone he's not. He tries to hide parts of himself. He avoids conflict. He apologizes for existing, and he feels judged when he isn't. The unknown magnifies the fears he had in the real world. Fears that started with Sara. But Wirt's growth changes how he sees Sara. When Wirt finally defeats the beast, or rather defeats the version of himself he believes is powerless, something subtle changes. His relationship with Sara isn't magically fixed. He doesn't suddenly become smooth or confident, but he does take a step, a small one, a human one. For the first time, he speaks to her without overthinking. He actually lets himself exist in the same emotional space without spiraling. He talks to her like a person, not a symbol of something he's insecure about. Wirt doesn't win Sara, he doesn't need to, he wins himself. And therefore, he becomes capable of connection with Sara or anyone without the crushing weight of fear dictating his every move.
We thought this place was abandoned, so...
So we came here to burgle your turts.
No, it's not true.
It is true.
Now, let's talk about Greg, an 8-year-old powered entirely by enthusiasm, optimism, and apparently a mild disregard for physical laws. Greg is joy personified. He sees opportunity where Wirt sees doom. He befriends everything, including rocks, birds, and possibly the reincarnation of Ronald Reagan.
I have something for you.
He does not give a single ounce of emotional energy to the concept of shame. He's low-key me, if we're being honest. Greg is Wirt's foil, but more importantly, he's Wirt's anchor, because Greg represents exactly what Wirt lacks. Spontaneity, confidence, hope, wonder, swag, money, bitches, and the ability to do anything without immediately worrying about the consequences. But Greg is also Wirt's responsibility, and that is the paradox, because Wirt's anxiety is the most intense when he feels responsible for someone. Responsibility introduces stakes. Stakes introduce fear. Fear introduces self-doubt. And self-doubt introduces bitch behavior. Greg's innocence becomes the thing Wirt most wants to protect, and the thing he's most afraid of failing. So when Greg eventually sacrifices himself to the beast, it crystallizes Wirt's deepest fear. My flaws hurt people. My fears make others unsafe. And this is where Wirt's arc shifts. He no longer fears embarrassment. He fears losing Greg. And for the first time, love overpowers anxiety. Greg becomes the catalyst that wakes Wirt up.
Yes, all hope will soon be lost.
The Beast, my favorite Mossad agent. One of the most haunting antagonists created for a children's show, and also the single most accurate representation of intrusive thoughts I've ever seen. The Beast doesn't roar, he doesn't chase, he doesn't attack, he whispers, he manipulates, he waits. He is patient because he knows fear is his greatest weapon, the same strategy I adopt for picking up women. The Beast's philosophy is simple. You are lost, you are weak, you cannot do this alone. Sound familiar? It's the voice of self-doubt, of insecurity, of every internal monologue that says you're destined to fail. The lantern metaphor is devastatingly brilliant. The Beast's life force only persists if someone believes in its importance, believes in him, fears him, feeds him through obedience. Just like anxiety, just like insecurity, just like the fears Wirt keeps nourishing without realizing it. When Wirt finally understands the truth, that the Beast has no power without consent, it's the first time he sees his own fear clearly. And in that moment, Wirt grows, not because he suddenly became brave, but because he finally recognizes the lie his anxiety has been telling him. You're helpless. It's not strength that defeats the Beast, it's clarity, it's courage, it's rejecting the narrative of fear he's lived inside his whole life.
So, maybe we can listen to this.
You can listen to it at my house. Yes.
Wirt's transformation isn't dramatic. It's not loud. It's not cinematic in the action movie sense, but it is cinematic in the human sense. By the end of the show, Wirt takes initiative. He makes decisions without second guessing. He protects Greg instead of hiding behind him. He stops apologizing for existing. He stops performing versions of himself. He opens up, honestly, vulnerably. And the reason it's so powerful is because Wirt doesn't suddenly turn into a confident hero. He's still awkward, he's still insecure, he's still uncomfortable in his own skin. But now, he actually lets himself try. Wirt's arc isn't about becoming brave. It's about realizing fear doesn't have to control him. He learns that embarrassment won't kill him. That rejection won't destroy him. That vulnerability isn't weakness. It's the foundation of real connection. Growing up is less about changing who you are, and more about accepting that who you are is enough. Wirt finally stops avoiding life. He steps into it. And that is real courage.
And so the story is complete, and everyone is satisfied with the ending, and so on and so forth. And yet, over the garden wall.
Over the Garden Wall might be wrapped in aesthetics of autumn, Americana, and folklore, but beneath the whimsy lies something deeply human. It's a story about fear, insecurity, and the struggle to grow into yourself at a time when you barely know who that is. Wirt's journey is one of the most honest portrayals of adolescence in animation. Messy, anxious, uncertain, and quietly transformative. Because the hardest part of growing up isn't facing monsters. It's facing yourself. And sometimes, the bravest thing that you can do is let yourself be seen.
Oh, it's a girl you're after, eh?
No, I mean, yes, but...
But he's our frog.
Well, he's not my frog. It's not my job to get us home, okay? I'm done.
Are you saying I should be the leader?
I don't care what you do.
He will soon become part of my forest.
I won't let that happen.
My frog.
Our frog.
Our frog.
Thank you for your time, and God bless.
I don't like them putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay.